Welcome to Fantastic Tones for Human Bones. This is a podcast where Mark Pascucci Clifford and myself, Robert Woods-Ledoux, discuss the music that we love and hold interviews with inspiring musicians discussing their work and practice. In this episode, we speak with bassist and composer Doug Stuart. We talk about Doug growing up outside of Chicago, attending music school in Michigan, his San Francisco Bay Area-based project Bell's Atlas, and his current project with the artist named Dougie Stu, and his recently released album Familiar Future. Please visit dougiestu.com to find all the relevant links to Doug's music as well as his upcoming shows and social media. You can support the podcast by subscribing to us on Patreon. Follow us on Twitter at tones_4. Follow us on Instagram at FT4HB. We greatly appreciate any and all support. Thank you. Fantastic tones for human bones. Welcome to Fantastic Tones for Human Bones. I am Robert Woods-Ledoux, and my co-host...
I'm Mark Pascucci Clifford.
And today we have with us Doug Stuart.
Hello.
Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're still new on this, so I think this is the first full remote recording session that we've done. So, yeah.
Awesome. I'm honored to talk to you, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure to have you. Yeah, I think we've both known you for a while, but just for those of you who do not know, Doug is an incredible all-around musician, but bass is your primary instrument, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you are a composer, band leader, band participant, producer.
Yeah.
Any other titles or monikers that you'd like to add to that?
Oh, no. 3 is plenty for 2021.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited to talk to you. The cool thing about this project is when talking to friends, you get to explore some things that you probably have had in the back of your mind, like just general questions for years.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, but some more affirmations or confirmations. But let us start at the beginning, if that's cool with you.
Yeah. Wherever.
Okay. So you grew up in Chicago?
Yeah. Well, the suburbs. Libertyville, to be exact. It's like about an hour northwest.
Okay. And is it true that you were neighbors with both the Brown brothers and Sean Lewecki? Is that?
Yeah. Like loosely neighbors. We're in the same town, so we all hung out and worked on music together.
Yeah, that's so. Bob, Sean Lewecki's a drummer who was out here for a while, and then I'm referring to Scott and Drew Brown. You know Scott Brown pretty well. You've played with him a fair amount.
Yeah.
Scooter Bistro, of course.
Yep.
Right.
And then Drew is a fantastic guitarist in person.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, that's incredible. And then you all ended up out here eventually, but we'll get there. So at what point were you starting to make music together as kids?
In middle school, Sean was in the band program and I was in the orchestra program. And we had become friends in gym class, I think, just like school buddies. And he was like, "You play bass in orchestra?" He was like, "My dad has an electric bass, and he has a book of Led Zeppelin songs that is notated," which is like such a funny way to learn Led Zeppelin songs. And I was like, I can read music. So it's such a nerdy, funny way to work on Led Zeppelin songs rather than just like putting on the record and figuring it out.
Yeah.
I was like reading like this notated book of transcriptions. And that in turn was the start of a band, like a rock band, where we mostly ended up doing like our other friend Chris played guitar, and we mostly played like instrumental covers of Rage Against the Machine songs, because
nice.
nobody had the wherewithal to sing those songs, but we all really liked the grooves, and that was kind of our stronghold in the Libertyville garage band circuit.
That's okay. So, yeah, that brings up a couple other questions. You were not in the band program at first. You were in the orchestra program.
Yep.
At what point did you begin your studies at all?
So wait, real quick. Your high school had both an orchestra and like a band.
Yeah.
Band being like a marching band.
Yeah, they had like a marching band and like symphonic band is what they called it, which
like wind ensemble kind of thing.
Yeah, wind ensemble. Yeah, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then the crossover for me and them was we realized that we could all be in the same school band if we all joined jazz band, which was kind of the door to the rest of my life.
Was so wait, was the orchestra the string orchestra only?
Yeah.
Kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah, and it was like an amazing school program, really, because they had the string orchestra, the wind ensemble, and then the symphonic orchestra, which is like all the parties in the same place.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, totally. We were privileged suburban kids who had no idea what was at our fingertips.
I had a similar experience. Was it a arts or performing arts school, or were you just
public,
at a badass program? Luckily,
just public high school and middle school.
Damn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow,
that's cool.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, yeah, it was elemental to me getting into music in the way that I did, and at the depth I did, at the age I did.
So, yeah, on that, did you start on upright or did you start on... Okay.
Yeah, so I was playing upright bass there, yeah.
All right. And were you... That's interesting. You were doing that in middle school.
Yeah.
When did you first start playing upright?
I think it was 6th grade. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. They have those little basses, half-size basses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just knew.
Were they like, you're kind of tall, you can play bass?
It was kind of like, I think at that point, my parents were strongly encouraging me to join the some part of the music program. Mm-hmm. And not that I didn't have an interest, but they were just like, you should do this. And I was like, well, maybe if I did that. I had it in my mind already. I'd seen the jazz ensemble and saw the like electric bass player. And I was like, that's cool. I want to do that.
Yeah.
There was some delusion of it being a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. And was there a lot of musical influence around your house as well?
A lot of musical what?
Like influence just around home.
Oh, yeah. My dad had a huge record collection, mostly classic rock, but also like some curveballs, some R&B, and some I remember he had like a couple Ahmad Jamal records and some blues, but a lot of classic rock. My mom was really into Motown and like, what was deemed oldies at that point, Beach Boys and stuff like that. Neither of them were terribly musical themselves, but liked music. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're playing in the jazz band, and you're already finding friends to make music together around high school.
Yep.
At this point, were you starting to think about composition, or were you still like getting your feet wet with like improvisation, trying to transcribe? Like how, before you got out of high school, I guess I'm asking, how deep in the lore were you?
Yeah. Well, yeah, like the garage band stuff with like the Rage Against the Machine, that was like mostly middle school. And then in high school, we, like me and my close friends, Sean and Drew and Scott, we were all like getting pretty deep into jazz, like both like classic stuff, just kind of like running the gamut from like 50s all the way to like modern Chicago, Jeff Parker and Chicago Underground stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I was out of high school, I had done some transcription and like written probably 12 tunes that we would play as a combo.
Okay.
That like,
yeah,
I don't think I would stand by them today, but I was putting the pen to paper and at least like trying to, that was something that I was interested in, just like writing my own songs or whatever.
That's interesting. And I mean, where you were growing up, like there was, in Chicago proper, there was so much happening. How aware of like the Delmark and Josh Berman I think maybe even Aram was there at the time, and
totally,
how aware of the contemporary scene at that time were you?
Just kind of barely scratching the surface, really. Drew is kind of always the dude who is discovering the cool shit to listen to and sharing it with us.
Sure.
And we had all like gotten into Tortoise, and then he was like, "Oh man, this guy Jeff does all this jazz stuff." Like, so I was kind of like, I was into like Chicago Underground, and I think by that time the Quartet record had come out, and a couple of Jeff's trio recordings.
Yeah, that was before like Bright Light in Autumn, or
yeah, totally. I think
Relatives
had just come out when I was in high school.
Okay.
And then like beyond the like more creative like AACM influence scene, there's like a pretty deep just like straight ahead jazz scene, and one of the only, like, I guess you could call it a venue, is a steakhouse that had jazz every night. That was like one of the only spots. Yeah. It was like one of the only spots that would let us in, because Chicago is really strict about people not going into bars that unless you're 21.
Oh, right.
But since this place served food, we could get in there, and they had some really like amazing straight ahead jazz a few nights a week. So this guy Bobby Broom would play there once a week, who ended up playing in Sonny Rollins' band for a long time, and this other dude Ron Perillo. And then we started seeing Jeff there a few times. Like, he would play in this guy Jeff Bradfield's band, doing like almost all Monk songs all night, which I think really informed my appreciation for what he did. Just like at that age, at such a impressionable age, like seeing this musician like play across the spectrum, like being in Tortoise and then doing like more improvisational, compositional, like new free jazz stuff, and then seeing him like shred over Thelonious Monk songs. I was like, wow, that is so cool, because I feel like it's kind of rare to see musicians really cross all those boundaries, and that I feel like that was, in hindsight, really influential for me.
Yeah, I'm still unraveling I'm still dealing with Chicago, like in my own listening all the time. Like all the stuff that O'Rourke had put out on Drag City during that time before he moved. And,
I was into that stuff,
and I, having gone out there and played the few times that I did, we would go listen to music as well, like, and I felt a very just going back to what you were saying about the straight ahead scene, there's a super deep sense of groove that I felt when I was there. There's like, it's a different type of swing, I guess, than I would hear anywhere else. And there's like a real earthiness to the music into my ears. I don't.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I think I still hear that now, like when I listen to like any records that like Mike Reed is on. There's something that I can't quite put my finger on about that. Some of the more straight ahead jazz projects that I hear coming out of Chicago, but it's incredible, and the music from that city is like forever fascinating for me. So I think it's awesome that you got to grow up being close to that
Yeah,
and
I
aware
feel
of
really
it.
very lucky.
Sounds very cool.
Yeah. Very lucky to have experienced that at that age.
Yeah, man. I do remember my friend Mickey, who worked at a record store. He showed me Standards when I was a senior. So it took me a minute to get there, but when I heard Standards, it kind of like it popped.
Which Wynton Marsalis or what were we
no,
talking
my
about?
bad. The Tortoise record.
Oh,
Standards.
Standard. Oh, yeah. I was like, where are we at here? Which Standards? Nice.
No.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, and that kind of changed everything for me.
Yeah.
In that instance, I was like, it became a huge hall pass to like go make whatever music I wanted. Because I was like really serious about learning how to shred on the vibraphone as much as I could, and then like doing the classical marimba stuff. But that shifted everything. So anyway, enough about me. Sorry.
No,
it's
great.
kind of funny to listen to you guys talk about this because I didn't really have this experience with jazz in high school at all. I was hearing. I actually played in a jazz band, but I still to this day like don't know that many standards.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was just playing drum set, so I was like, you don't need to know this stuff. But I was like. I remember like I never like got into like all of the normal jazz recordings until much later in my life.
Like now, right?
Now
you and I
I'm going
are now talking about like Bill Evans, and you're learning jazz piano harmony techniques and all that. But like,
I mean, I was been into Bill Evans for a while, but
okay,
I was into stuff like Eric Dolphy very early, but not normal stuff.
Got you. Yeah. Actually, Eric Dolphy was one of the first like jazz musicians that I got into too randomly from the public library. Like there was like the public library in my town had this crazy jazz CD collection, and I went and I was like, I'm looking for a jazz album. And for some reason, the person's like, I have just the thing for you.
Oh, man.
And they were like, here's Eric Dolphy live at the 5 spot. And I was
oh, wow.
I was like, excellent. Thank you very much. And I put it on and I was like, this is insane. I love this music. And I had no frame of reference for like what it was or where it was coming from or why it was different. It was just like, oh, this is jazz. Okay.
This is the most normal jazz record. You should base all your expectations on after this.
Take that on when you first heard that? Because
I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it. Yeah. I think because like listening to it now, it is still pretty like it's like super groove oriented.
Yeah.
There's forms. Mm-hmm. There's like there's harmony. I mean, his playing is still, like pretty absurd.
Yeah.
Like and like super angular and weird, but it's still like very rooted in a lot of ways. That it didn't, and I think it's just like so visceral and like the energy in that record is so, I don't know, it's like easy for me to connect to. I kind of like get why it spoke to. I think if they would have given me Out to Lunch, I probably would have been like, okay, maybe I don't like jazz. It's like a little too much. Obviously, I fell in love with that record later, but that would have been a hard entry point, I think.
It's strange. I had to get through Point of Departure before I could take on Out to Lunch all the way.
Sure.
Yeah,
those feel like a pair in my mind. The Andrew Hill record and that.
But one helped me with the other.
Yeah.
For sure. Man.
That was my first one.
That was your first one?
Yeah, Out to Lunch.
Oh, cool. That was like your first jazz record that you were just...
That was from at least... I mean, if you're not counting stuff like Mahavishnu Orchestra, I guess, or like, stuff like that. But
yeah.
I would say it's slightly more in the jazz idiom, at least sonically.
Yeah. I see that. I mean, it's acoustic also. Yeah.
Was this you said at the 5 spot was the record?
Yeah.
I don't think I've even heard this.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's like Ed Blackwell, Richard Davis, and Mal Waldron, and Booker Little. And it's just like, I don't know, like bebop on drugs, on other drugs, different drugs.
I mean, yeah, that ensemble is incredible. Man.
That implies that bebop wasn't on
actually,
drugs.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think, from what I've read about Dolphy, he didn't do drugs, so I shouldn't say that. It's just like some pretty, like, yeah, it's adventurous. It's got edges to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, what a band.
What a band.
Booker Little, man.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what I assume is another seminal experience in your life. You got through high school, and what drew you to Michigan? Is it University of Michigan, right?
Yeah.
And improvisation and intentional studies. Do I remember that correctly?
It was jazz and contemplative studies.
Okay. So
yeah.
Contemplative.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear a little bit about that program and what drew you to it. And I know that you had some incredible teachers, so I'd love to hear a bit about what you learned from them.
Well, I landed there because prior to going to college, I didn't know if I wanted to pursue orchestra, like a classical degree or jazz, and they were very encouraging of me doing both. So I landed there as a double major, doing classical bass and jazz. At that time, just jazz studies. And both the bass professors in the jazz and classical departments were amazing. Diana Gannett is the classical bass professor, and she's just like an amazing bassist and human, and incredible teacher. Just super into being musical, and she knew all the orchestra excerpts and all the stuff you need to know if you're going to be a classical bass person.
So were you working excerpts at all? I'm sure you had to do some of that for recitals and what have you, but
I had to do that stuff. I was in the orchestra and running all that stuff for the first 2 years of school there.
Sorry, not recitals, auditions. My bad.
Auditions. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I had prepared a lot of that. I mean, as much as you can when you're 17 or whatever.
Yeah.
She was also an amazing soloist, as far as just classical solo bass rep stuff, just super expressive and beautiful tone, and she was one of the main draws for me to go there. And then in the jazz department, they had just brought Robert Hurst on as the bass professor.
Incredible.
And which was, I actually didn't know that going into it because it wasn't announced yet or something.
Wow.
They were just so
you get there and then there's Robert Hurst.
They were
wow.
We can't tell you who it is, but you will be very pleased at who the bass professor is. Because when I was trying to make the decision, I was like, okay. And then it was Bob Hurst, who was...
That's crazy. You didn't know awesome. Going there?
No,
and then
I didn't know.
He's your teacher. You're like, okay.
Yeah, I was
right.
this is...
time to get my butt whooped.
Yeah,
quite
exactly.
A bit.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with this, but my experience there was super formative on so many levels. And the program was really cool. Ultimately, I ended up dropping the classical major probably because of the excerpts.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't see myself in this world. It doesn't bring me joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not that it can't, and not that it's not beautiful and awesome, but it just wasn't where my head was at with music. And I ended up moving into this program called Jazz and Contemplative Studies, which was, it's it's still happening. It was really new at the time. I think it had only been around for a few years, and it's combining improvisation, just typical jazz studies stuff, but then also a lot of contemplative practice seminar, which was that was the name of the class, which was like it was this teacher, Martha Travers, and she basically, we went through a bunch of different meditation practices and kept a journal and had like open dialogue, and the course was open to people from, actually it was not only open, but she made sure to draw from like every part of the university. So there was, kids from like business school there, and kids from language arts, and kids from the art program and music, which was cool for the dialogue because, like we'd do these different meditations and, talk about our experience in that moment, but then also like kind of zoom out and just thinking about like how these different skills applied to the things that we were, going to school for, or life in general. And it was awesome. It was so unique.
Absolutely. That has to be a really interesting thing at that age, because I feel like a lot of times if you're in the undergrad age bracket in a jazz program, your focus is going to be on like burning, super modern, the hippest possible thing. But then if you're being tasked to be like intentional and inward looking, maybe it can help you see past some of these things, which I see as potential pitfalls a lot of the time.
I agree.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it may have changed the course of what I envisioned my life as a musician being. I never really put it on
Seems
that.
Big.
Yeah, I never really actually equated it to that program or those, classes. But when you put it like that, I'm sure that it had something to do with it. I think
it's so interesting, even from just a collegiate structure. Like it's like a meta program.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they were super into just like interdisciplinary dialogue, and it's just like stuff that is not really fundamental in most universities, but is so valuable, I think.
Yeah.
Like, why should we be in college and only interface with like the people learning the exact thing that we're learning? Like, seems so limited.
Did you have at least in the jazz idiom, did you have people like being like, oh, you have to practice, blah blah blah, like you have to work harder, like being, I don't know, whiplashy or whatever?
Whiplashing me. Yeah, there was some of that. I had like a lot of like whiplash instinct in my heart just because I have an older brother who is like an athlete, and like I was just like I just like, I was so I still am just so self-deprecating and like, man, I suck. I can't play, the bass or these songs or this music. So,
isolate that audio.
I definitely had a lot of just like so many hours in the practice room. And people, there were like some hard teachers. I remember, there was this guy, Donald Walden, who actually passed while I was there, but he was the saxophone chair, who was just like old school, super loving, but like just no bullshit. Like, would just tell you if like it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
He'd be like,
your time sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he was like, I remember like accompanying his improvisation class. He'd be like, I brought you in here to help us keep steady time. And you have failed me on that. I'd be like, oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd be like,
I have been there. I have been there.
He's like, I want you to keep trying, though. Just like, you don't feel like playing at all after that for the next half an hour. You're just so in your head, like, gosh, are my quarter notes steady? I don't think so.
I mean, that I've had experiences like that even outside of school.
Yeah.
Like on the bandstand,
totally.
Where someone hired me specifically to break me down, and it like wrecked me for a full year.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. No, I think I'm still shaking off music school insecurities for sure.
The old school, man, I mean, like, I've been lectured many times on how people used to wait in line to play one song, to sit in for one song, and they would spend weeks and weeks practicing this one song so that they could go play it, you know?
Yeah. And I dig it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's about it, really. I mean, it's just a different way of thinking.
I think it's good, honestly, too. I feel like I had a lot of soft teachers, both in college and in high school, and I think a dose of like a seasoned professional telling you like, hey, your feel sucks. Like, you're a bass player, you better figure that shit out. Like, I don't know. It could break you, definitely, but it can also just be a little eye-opening. Like, wow, okay, that's like, maybe I need to prioritize that rather than like playing as fast as I can. Yeah. Like, maybe if I can't keep steady time.
It's definitely different for each person. Like, I definitely had friends in school that basically stopped playing music.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know, some, like, I respond pretty well to harsh criticism.
Yeah.
But not everyone does, you know?
Definitely. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I have like music school baggage now that I'm kind of like, I feel like if a young person, depending on the person, was like, should I go to music school? Like, it's pretty 50-50 for me. I'm like, well, what do you want to do with music? Because if you want to be like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. I just don't think that that's the only way to learn the craft, and I certainly don't think it encourages like creativity or singular voices. It's like,
I definitely know some brilliant musicians who never went to music school.
Definitely. And I feel like a lot of music I listen to doesn't come from music school.
Actually, a lot of my teachers didn't go to music school.
Totally, yeah. Bob, like, yeah. I mean, Bob went to music school, but like was like touring when he got there. I mean, he just I heard stories about him just being like as good as he is now when he was 16.
Yeah, you hear a lot. I've heard the same. One of my percussion teachers went to school with Edgar Meyer, and he said he was a beast out of high school. Just
him and Bob went to college together, actually, in Indiana, and they were. I think they were both just like, you know, professionals by the time they were freshmen in college, but for whatever reason, they felt like they needed to go to music school.
Mark Foster went there as well.
Wow.
With Bob. Anyway, what about, were you working with Jerry Allen?
Yes, Jerry was there. She was amazing, man. Just like incredible presence. And like just so humbling and a woman of few words, but like would just cut right to your soul. Just be like, did you really feel that when you played it? You're like, God damn it, I guess I didn't.
I mean,
I guess I was thinking about
insane, man.
Yeah, like
I mean,
you know,
it makes sense thinking about her playing. She is one of my all-time favorite improvisers on the piano.
Oh,
like her shit with Charles Lloyd just blew me away when I heard that. You know, Jump in the Creek, that record. Just like, oh man.
Yep.
So deep.
Yeah, no, she was incredible. I feel super lucky to have spent time with all of them, and especially her. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. So that's interesting. This conversation about whether or not thinking music school is valuable is I haven't thought about this that much, because in my mind it's sort of inherent. I was like, well, yeah, you have to find a program that's good for you, but there's
I'm with you on the 50-50, honestly, personally.
Yeah, I don't think I think it's certainly valuable. I don't mean to devalue it, but I question its relevance, like as I think more and more, and I just I think it's case by case, honestly, with young students, like whether or not I'd actually recommend it.
Right. Yeah, there was a moment where I was considering going to get a master's, and then essentially everyone I spoke to about it was like, you are already well on your path, and what are you even going to do? You know, and essentially everything that got me to where I am was like a program in and of itself, but it's just the peers that I had around me, you know.
Right.
Those become my biggest influences. Like y'all, like both of you working with Aram when I first got out here.
Yeah.
You know, that was super heavy.
Yeah.
He was kind of a butt kicker in his own way, you know.
Totally.
All right. So speaking of that, what brought you out here? Where I am now, where you moved to the Bay after Michigan, yes?
College, yeah. Honestly, I think I was like, I don't want to live in New York, which was a big turning point for me. Because out of high school, I always envisioned like, oh, I'm going to go to college and then move to New York and then be a jazz musician.
Thing.
Yeah. And I think that is what I was alluding to when you were like, maybe this inward-looking program helped you avoid this pitfall of like, you know, only studying the most modern, hip stuff out there. And I think that it did kind of, because I think in a lot of jazz programs, I would have just like done that. I would have graduated and went to New York and tried to be a modern jazz musician.
It's so funny. You're our fourth podcast guest, but this question of moving to New York after college has come up 3 out of 4 times. Right?
Yeah. It
so seems funny. To be pretty common.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know. There's some narrative that is just beat into everybody's minds as a high school jazz musician, I think.
That narrative is still present. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some validity there. Like, obviously, New York has amazing stuff happening and has for a long time. But I felt like I wanted to be able to explore different types of music a little more freely and not. I felt like the musicians I knew in New York were kind of like really zeroed in on one thing, whatever their thing was, and I didn't feel like there's a lot of room to explore other parts of their musicality. And whereas the Bay, I didn't really know the music scene, but Sean, who we had talked about earlier, had some friends out there, and he was just kind of like, you should move out to the Bay with me. And that, you know, being 18 with no agenda, I was like, that sounds good. I don't want to move back to Chicago right now. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I've always wanted to explore the West Coast, so let's go for it.
Wait, you were 18?
21 or?
21, excuse me. Yeah, I forgot what
you go to college.
Yeah. I'm only 27 now.
Excellent.
So it was very uncalculated to be honest.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, when I first got out here, there were 2 essentially contingents that I was interfacing with. One was Miami grads, and the other was Michigan grads, and it all came together. Yeah, you know, like, so you, Christian, Derek, Scooter, and Sean, and then Sam Stone. Yeah. And did Drew go to Michigan? No, he went to New School. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then everyone from Miami, and it all was just like, that was the Bay when I got here, and I was like, this is pretty
I have a question. Because Michigan is fairly close to Chicago, yeah?
Fairly, yeah.
Are those people from Chicago as well?
Are the people from Chicago?
The people that went to Michigan? Is there a large contingent from Chicago?
Yeah, but it's still like a big university, so there's people from all over. But there are a lot of like Midwestern people there for sure.
Right on. Right on. Because, that makes sense.
Some of my friends, I had some close friends who were from LA actually out there, and from San Diego, you know, just kind of all over. But yeah, a lot of Midwestern people.
So yeah, you came out here, and I know that you were like I had played with you in a couple of different contexts, and
Sure.
you were doing like cheese board, like some casuals.
Oh yeah.
I think would it be fair to say that the first project that really got a lot of traction that you were a part of was Bell's Atlas?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, definitely. That was I spent a lot of time working on that music with those lovely people, and
yeah,
we definitely. Yeah, I think that probably occupied most of my musical creative space for a good while I was in the Bay.
I will never forget the beginning of that band because I witnessed it.
That's right. It was at your house.
Yeah.
Market.
Yes.
Yeah. Market
just
Street.
Peeked there.
You guys were probably like the hardest working band I've ever known. I mean that.
We rehearsed a lot.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, it was. I was impressed, because I don't have personally the patience to rehearse with a band that much, but you guys were so committed.
I don't either
to it,
anymore.
and it made such a difference, honestly.
Yeah.
It really, the way that I kind of have vague memories of how you guys sounded when you first started playing, and then how you sounded like a year later. Because you practiced for a solid 6 months before you ever even considered playing a show or anything, right? It was a long time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we had a lot of rehearsals.
And you wrote kind of all your songs together, if I recall correctly.
Yep. Which is a very labor-intensive process.
Yeah, that's intense. I think I've only been a part of one group that has done anything close to that, but even then, there was a lead person who would bring in essentially the form, and then everyone else would shape it out,
I think that, I mean, there's, I definitely feel like the music couldn't have come about any other way for that band. Or, I mean, it could have, but it wouldn't have been anywhere near the same as it was, which was cool. It was always really surprising where we ended up. And, I think we all liked that about it, getting to a place where it's wow, okay, none of us would have ever written this singularly.
Yeah.
But the process of, everybody in the band always had a lot of ideas, in the process of fleshing those out and entertaining them all.
Yeah.
It just takes a lot of time and patience and love.
There's a lot of strong musical personalities in that band.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, yeah.
I'm sure y'all went through it sometimes.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't easy. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It wasn't easy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it was a labor of love. I think we were all excited about, like you had alluded to, having some traction, or just some outside interest, mostly locally, but just having people outside of the band being excited about the music was kind of good That's fuel cool. Good fuel to pour stuff into it, and
you also you never stopped being a hardworking band. As you progressed, you guys were doing so much stuff all the time.
Yep, that's true. I think it's hard to look back at it and not be critical, or not wish things had gone a little differently. Not that we're we never broke up. We're still just taking a break. And
Sure.
I think everybody had other interests to pursue, but I think that
you guys are in separate spaces. You don't live in the same city.
We don't live in the same place anymore, but I think that mentality of working hard ended up translating to people feeling a little exhausted and like they didn't have time to do other things. So if I could go back and do it again, I think I would personally vote to figure out how to work a little smarter, or just like put more restrictions on all the processes, whether it be writing or rehearsing. Just be like, cool, we need to finish this album in a month, period. Just to see what happens. And I think that I don't think the music would suffer that much. I think it would just kind of expedite the process a little bit.
Yeah. But from what I understand, a lot of the production was almost experimental and exploratory, especially on the second release, right? Like I feel like I've talked to Geneva a little bit about this. Like there's, I think you and her were working really hard on learning how to produce.
Yeah, totally.
In a way, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
and that's invaluable, I'd say. But
oh yeah, totally. No, we couldn't have done that faster. I think like I had been doing a lot of home recording pretty much since I got to the Bay, just like slowly accumulating knowledge and gear, and like starting from a super entry level like GarageBand and an internal mic when I arrived in the Bay, and
wow.
And then totally, like just the absolute bare bones of what you do on a laptop with music. And that was the first record that we had, as a band and me personally, had made in earnest and like tried to make it feel and sound right. And it, there was a lot of hours poured into it that definitely informed other projects. And I wouldn't take that back. I wouldn't take any of it back. I think if we, moving forward, I would just try to impose some tighter restrictions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and now you are part of projects in which you can do that.
Yeah. 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 Totally.
It's very cool. Yeah, I mean, especially at a younger age, learning how to cross-collaborate.
Yeah.
That's gotta, man. Yeah, like I said, I haven't been a part of a project like that, and it sounds amazing and really what is it? Like a extremely important experience in terms of you becoming the musician, all of y'all that you are, and you learn so much of what not to do and how not to act when you're in your 20s. At least I did.
Totally, yeah.
Maybe that happened musically.
It was a lesson in communication for sure. Like, it's sensitive to work on art with people, and when you have differing ideas and just figuring out how to navigate those difference of opinions in a graceful and respectful way, and also just like learning how to make compromises and be humble and be like, cool, that's not what I would do, but that's not what the majority thinks, so whatever, like let's make whatever we're gonna do as cool as possible.
Yeah. I always have this thought when I'm doing with collaborations, because and this is just me, but like I have a tendency to kind of like overdo it on my end with things, and like if I'm working on something like taking over too much stuff, and I always have to remind myself, it's like when I'm retrospective about past collaborations, it's like always like just allowing it to, like, being patient and allowing it to really grow and develop is well worth it, and it always turns out better in the end than if I try like take over more or less. It's like just like leaving the space for it to maybe be a little uncomfortable for a little longer, and like find a different like place that's more in the middle of whoever you're working with. It's certainly less efficient, and it's like not the easiest thing to do, but it's always better. Like the result is always better.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I mean, because especially in COVID, I mean, well, Bob and I started a duo, and I guess what I'm trying to say is you have every opportunity in the world these days to make something that fully represents your personal musical aesthetic.
Right.
It's easy. We can all record.
Yeah.
that has become a very easy and standard thing. So it's interesting to hear y'all talking about this and just thinking about how important it is to back your own in collaborating, to back off that way a little bit, because your voice will be heard and you can make it heard however much you want, but then why do you collaborate?
Yeah.
If you want it to be all about your own personal aesthetic, just finding the balance between wherever your voice and whoever you're working with, where their voice meets.
I mean, part of that is too, I think, is like whatever the chemistry is there, or like however the skill sets and like interact,
Yeah, that's another thing.
And certain collaborations are way easier for that reason, I think, because you like inherently occupy different spaces.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like Bell's Atlas, because you guys are all very singular instrumentalists. Like there's not really one person in the band that's like a multi-instrumentalist songwriter composer type. At least when you first started,
Yeah. We all kind of like leaned more on our one instrument, but at the same time, I think all of us now find creative spaces where we're doing a lot more than just our one instrument.
For sure.
Yeah.
And
especially in the new project, right? It's like,
so I think that, I don't know. That'll be interesting if we get back together to see where we land.
I know Geneva's been she's been sending me tracks here and there, and it's like she's getting more, trying to be multi-instrumentalist person.
Yeah, and I mean, she always had like obviously such a singular voice on the drums, and like so unique, and like it's easy to if I didn't know her and I just saw her play drums, I'd be like, oh, she's a drummer. But then like knowing that she came from vibraphone and classical percussion, and she's like, I've heard her kill the bass, and she's just like an amazing all-around musician.
A good singer too, honestly.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
She could do it all. But such a voice on the drums that you wouldn't necessarily suspect that.
Man, when y'all started, she was trying to do vibes and drums at the same time, right?
Yeah, she was. Yeah. Yeah, and then we were like, okay, well, how are we gonna fit that in the car?
Yeah, and then it turned to Juno, and she was doing Juno and drums.
Yeah, and then we were like, let's just put it on the pad.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so I want to start working towards the record that you put out recently, and I would also like to talk a little bit about your work with Brigitte, but I think to get there, don't you think we have to sort of touch on Myrna and Native Cat, because is that how Familiar Future came about?
That's not how Familiar Future came about.
Okay,
honestly.
cool. Then
it was in the same era,
Native
though.
Cat out of it.
Yeah, it was in the same era, though. I wanted it to come out. I wanted that to be the vehicle, but instead,
we all had.
But it wasn't ultimately.
Wait, I didn't know? Did you play with Myrna? I don't.
Still do.
Yeah, I still do.
I somehow don't remember that, but
let's. They started without me. It was just three of them, and at some point, maybe 5 years ago. I don't know. I've been playing with them for a while.
Oh.
But it's Carly and Rob are the I'm struggling to find a different word than parents. They're the mommy daddy.
Well, Andrew McGuire was in it right from the beginning, though, too.
Not from the beginning, actually. It was this dude, Nick DeReese.
Yeah, Nick DeReese.
Yep. Andrew and I came in around the same time.
Really?
Actually, before Andrew was in the band, the first show I ever did with Myrna, I think it was 2015 or 16, New Year's Eve at the Hatch. and Geneva played drums. Yeah. And I was playing bass in Poly 6, and Bob was playing...
Wait, I was there.
Yeah. That was a fun night.
That was fun, man.
Yeah.
We all boogied.
I did a DJ set afterward. I remember I had a lot of fun.
I didn't know that you DJ'd actually.
I don't actually. I just play records.
Just spinning records. Gotcha.
Yeah. Not in a skilled sense of being a DJ.
The Hatch was cool for that though.
Yep.
Quick aside, I mean, you could go there and DJ, but it was just like friends playing music. It was never a high stress gig. You know?
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah.
I don't think I know where this place is. Was it in Oakland?
It's downtown. Maybe 18th. Does that sound right? 16th?
Yeah, it's like around the corner from where the layover was and where that pizza joint was.
Still there, I believe.
Oh, really?
I think it made it through COVID.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I haven't popped over there in a minute.
Huh.
But aside.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's start. Let's talk about the genesis and the birth of Familiar Future, if that's cool with you, because I feel like coming out of Michigan, the music that we've been talking about, and probably the work that you had done, you worked so intensely hard with Bell's Atlas, and this came about maybe while you were on a break, like after the break, and you felt like this is a good chance for me to make some of more my music.
Totally. Yeah, we had decided to take a break. Everybody was eager to pursue some different things and just get some space. And I had, for a long while, wanted to make a record more in the jazz idiom, or like in the, not strictly improvised, but songs as a vehicle to improvise. And I'd been like into a corner of jazz, like listening to a corner of jazz that I hadn't really before that, which was like a lot of 70s stuff, but not necessarily fusion, but kind of like sneaking into fusion, Alice Coltrane stuff and Lonnie Liston Smith and Phil Ranlin and Vibes from the Tribe, and just kind of like some stuff that I hadn't really checked out that much in music school or thereafter.
Oh, I would have thought for sure that Alice Coltrane would be a big listening hitter at Michigan. But
I had definitely I had dove in actually to that in music school, but not like, I don't know, it was just speaking to me differently, I guess. Yeah. And
you had like the Mwandishi era, Herbie stuff,
yeah, totally. Yeah, I love that stuff.
Sextant.
I guess I felt like kind of inspired to not make an album that was like specifically like trying to be those things, but kind of like, I guess, especially sonically, being really inspired by some of those things, because I think that is maybe like in music school, I always felt like it was really cheesy when records had like a lot of reverb or delay, and I was like more like I wanted to hear like acoustic records that like I was like, I just want to hear the playing, man, like
that's a whole conversation, man, because then you have to like get into the ECM catalog and
totally
that could be tricky.
Absolutely. But it was like just an aesthetic thing that never like spoke to me when I was really deep into like jazz and like trying to learn that idiom. And I think like having all this time and, whatever you want to call Bell's indie rock bands and like learning production and I was just kind of like I feel like a lot more open aesthetically to what the sonics of a jazz record, that was some air quotes for those listening, could sound like.
Well, let's play a little excerpt just to get the listeners' toes dipped in there. Let's play a bit from the titular track, Familiar Future.
Sure.
Allow me to do the correct things on my computer.
I'm gonna adjust my thermostat here.
Standing by. And here we are. I think I'm gonna drop us in at the second iteration of the main melody.
Okay.
And this is Maya playing a bit of Rhodes on this. Maya, how do you pronounce?
Kronfeld.
Kronfeld, that's right. She sounds amazing. Is that her throughout on the Rhodes, on the whole record?
Yes. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, cool. Yeah, here's a little bit from title track, Familiar Future. Yeah, beautiful.
Thanks.
So there was a little bit of mischief on the road sound in there.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
mischief.
Did you that amazing pedal that they just kind of casually throw things through at Tiny?
The clon?
Yeah.
I do think the clon was engaged for that, actually. Yeah, there's a little dirt on there, and Rob Shelton, Bobby, was definitely putting it through I believe the prime time.
The prime time,
I don't know which one. I think there's two there right now.
Yeah, the Eventide, and then what's the other one?
The Lexicon prime time. Yeah, so I told him, I was like, just like can you send the signal back to us so Maya can play off of the delay and like improvise with that in her ears.
Oh wow.
Because I want it to be I want it to be known what's gonna happen with this sound.
Yeah.
And because I don't know, I think it would have felt a lot different for her to play without that, knowing that it was going to be delayed and
Well, let's step back just a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
Assembled a dream team.
Yes.
On this record, including Bobby Shelter.
Well, can we go back even a step further and be like,
sure,
how did this? How did you like come up with these. Did you come up with the compositions before you came up with the Dream Team, or?
Kind of simultaneously. I came up with the Dream Team, and then miraculously got everybody like everybody was down for 2 days. We did it in 2 days, like 6 months out, and I was like, cool. I had like 2 songs written, and I was like, great. Now I just have to write the record.
Okay.
And just I wanted to make stuff that was like very playable because we had such a short amount of time, and I wanted to make stuff that would be like play to all these amazing musicians' strengths and also play into this sonic world that I was envisioning. So I was trying to write a lot of stuff that was like not too complicated and pretty like easy to read, and also and just shooting for stuff to have like a lot of space for people to play. Those were like some of the broad goals for the songs.
Interesting.
And then the composition process was like I just basically sat down first thing in the morning and wanted to just like make the most skeletal demos and write like with a lot of them. I would like sample some drums from a recording or put on a little drum machine and just write. I don't know. I had gotten, prior to this record, every time I would go to like make stuff, I'd get really preoccupied with like producing whatever I was making, you know, like the sound of everything.
Yeah.
What synth sound and how am I going to treat it? And I was like, I just want to forget about all that and like write over a groove that I like and just keep it to bass and Rhodes and not trip on anything else. And just make it feel good and make the chords and the melody like something that feels like it fits into this world that I'm envisioning.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of brilliant, honestly.
It felt really refreshing to approach music that way.
Yeah.
Like I
definitely have the problem that you're describing of like getting into the weeds with making a recording while trying to write.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out that balance right now, actually. Like I have some time sectioned off tomorrow to compose, but I don't know if that's going to be me here recording or if I'm going to be notating, or I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah.
I have to like relearn how to do all of this.
Well, yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think it can be valuable depending on the like the end process to take your time with finding the sounds, because I guess part of it that was liberating is knowing that I wasn't going to record it at home.
Yep.
And so I was like, cool, I don't have to worry about like redoing all this stuff because like everything's going to be redone.
Right.
Whereas like with some of the others, like everything else I was working on, it wasn't necessarily like that. So it felt a little more precious to find the right sounds. We didn't have to go back and replace it or whatever.
Yeah. And knowing that you're gonna, so you all played live as an ensemble for the most part. Did you overdub
for the basics?
Strings? Or
yeah. We did the 2 days of basics where it was like guitar, synth, Rhodes, percussion, drums, bass, and engineer.
Okay, so Steve,
Lum,
and Maya were like simultaneously playing.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
It was
awesome.
That is
very fun. Yeah, and Jeff on guitar, and then Hamir on drums, Brigitte on percussion. John Santos was there for 1 day, also doing percussion, and then myself playing bass.
Do you know John? How did you get John Santos? I'm curious.
I had played with him one time. I did a gig for Howard Wiley at the Malcolm X Jazz Festival, and John was on the gig. So, I mean, I didn't know him very well, but I just asked him if he would be up for it, and then, he gave me his rate. I was like, okay. I was like, all right.
He's like, are you up for it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I was like, maybe one day, actually.
Yeah. His kid goes to OSA. He's a great little pianist that I work with.
Oh man, John is the sweetest cat. I wish I could have had him. I wish it would have made sense for me to have him for both days, because just having him in the studio, just his energy and his like excitement about the music was just
cool.
Awesome, man. I mean, obviously his playing was incredible, but he was just like so, I don't know, effervescent, just like so much. He was just pumped.
I don't
That's
know.
Awesome.
I don't know John that well, but the little bit of time that I've spent with him, his humility and his generosity is almost overwhelming. And like he does get almost like, when he's like excited about music, he's almost giddy because he's like,
oh, that's beautiful, man.
I remember there was this thing I saw John with this piano player. They were just like, it was like at this party at the Cuba camp in Humboldt, and they were like they were just like jamming, and like he was playing, I forget what this style is called, but it's like a fully notated sort of like cha-cha dance music, an older style, and like the percussion, and like he's like playing, like there's all these like hits and stuff, but like the majority of it is just like he's playing like quarter notes on the cha bell, the highest bell, and he's just like playing quarter notes, and he's just like first of all, it's like tight, and like just the quarter notes are like, they feel like really good, like it's got a big pocket, just playing just quarter notes. And he's like, and also he's like so excited and happy about what he's doing. It's it was unbelievable, that guy. I felt so honored that he was up for it, and just brought the best energy to the room. It was awesome. That's beautiful, and everyone who's on the record is just amazing musicians. And you know, I hear a lot of Rob's little mischief as well, like you know, like little blips and bloops pop in here, like I hear his 808 sneak in, you know. At
there's no 808. Oh, actually there is, because it was just left
for just a second.
It was left on the tape.
Wind Chaser.
It was on the tape.
And then, you know, I think this was also a very cool, I imagine, I'm definitely projecting, but I would assume this was a very cool project because you were able to work with a childhood hero of yours.
Absolutely.
You know, Jeff Parker.
Yeah.
And I think that you and I have discussed this briefly, but can you talk a little bit about how you ended up connecting with him and getting him on the record?
Yeah, totally. So I've gone to see Jeff play for more than half my life now at this point, and only since I had been in the Bay had he started to like recognize me and be like, oh, hey, you know, and I'd connect the dots and be like, oh yeah, you know, I used to go see you at Pete Miller's, and he'd be like, oh shit, man, yeah, totally. And he's also just the sweetest guy. And so we ended up, there was like a stint that I was, through Bell's Atlas, I had connected with the person who was doing the booking at the Ace Hotel in Palm Springs, because we played a gig there. Okay. My parents lived in Arizona at the time, and I had been making the drive from the Bay to Arizona, which is like a 12-hour drive, pretty often. And I had mentioned this to the guy. This is a really roundabout story. Sorry.
It's okay.
I mentioned to the guy, I was like, oh, I drive through here every once in a while. And he's like, and part of our gig where Bell's was like DJing for half the day. And he was like, you could DJ here sometime. And I was like, well, I drive through here like at least a few times a year. Like that'd be awesome if I could DJ here and stop for the night. And he was like, yeah, totally. So I started going down, and I would DJ and then stop and continue on to Arizona the next day. And one time we were hanging out, and I had played some Jeff Parker in my DJ set, and he was like, oh man, I'm trying to get Jeff out here to do a solo improvised show. And I was like, I would love to see that. Like, and I told him my history with Jeff, and by this point he had kind of known what I was into as a musician. And he was like, maybe you guys could do an improvised set together. And I was like, that would be a fucking dream come true. Like, you don't give him all the money. I don't need to be paid for that.
I'll think about it.
And it was kind of left at that. Like, I didn't really think it was going to happen or anything. And then a few weeks later, he's like, hey, it looks like this date works for Jeff. And he said he'd be up for doing that set. Like,
wow.
And I was like, no way. So it just kind of like, that was the first time wasn't the first time I played with him. I played with him actually prior to that. Like, I had just bug him when I'd go to LA to visit Brigine's parents because I knew he lived down here, and he was gracious enough to have me at his house and just play. We played like standards and improvised a couple times in his garage.
That sounds beautiful.
So yeah, I had like kind of a loose connection with him, and I reached out I was like, hey, I want to make a record and I'd love for you to be a part of it. And he was super down. He was just, I don't know. He's one of those people that, similar to John, just like loves music and is so humble and open to collaborating or being a part of different projects.
Yeah, I have limited interactions with him, but I once played at the Hungry Brain.
Oh, nice.
With him on Shevitz's Vibes.
Hungry Brain.
Cool.
And he, like, that was when I was a lot younger, and I was like terrified because of my history listening, and my confidence wasn't, I didn't feel myself. I didn't feel full.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but everyone there was so gracious.
Yeah.
And Jeff included, So let's listen to a little bit more. And I think that Bob and I are both very fascinated. So we'll listen to a couple more, but let's do
Henny because
Wind Chaser.
Let's do Henny because we just talked about Jeff.
Okay, all right, you are correct. So here's some here's a tune called Henny, and this features a fair amount of it prominently features Jeff's playing, and also is a very good exemplifier of the vibe and the sound of the record, in my opinion. But here we go.
Dope groove on that one.
Hang on, people.
What happened?
All right, sorry about that. That was just a silly thing that happened on my end. All right, yeah, Doug, the thing that we are not talking about when we're talking about the Dream Team is I just always, I love your playing so much. You are such an incredible musician. And I love the way that you, like, I can feel you so much. This is your record. Of course I should, but you sound amazing. I love
thanks,
your playing.
Man.
I just wanted to say that, dude.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful to have Jeff's voice as part of the mix, but that the ensemble overall in the vibe, it's extremely successful, in my opinion. You know, like.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm very comfortable playing with all those folks. So
yeah,
it made it. It made it as easy as it could have been, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Hamir is also someone who's very excited about music and exuberant.
Oh, yeah.
And he's such a deep musician.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he I mean, I think every take we did of every song ends with him laughing. It's like, yeah, let's cut it before Hamir's laugh again. Yeah. As joyful as that is, let's, yeah.
He's an incredible drummer.
He's so good.
Such a beast.
Yeah.
I have a question. When you're writing a song like Henny, like, I mean, as a bass player, you as a bass player, don't feature a lot of like very fancy bass riffs. You have like very simple, very like groove, like it, like the focus seems to be more on the chords and stuff like that. And like the overall thing, like how do you think about like your bass lines when you're composing and stuff? Like, you know, do you?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I haven't. It was kind of it wasn't an afterthought, but I was writing from the roads mostly, which is not my forte. But I think it kind of, I don't know. Yeah, the bass playing was just kind of like I would write over like a drum feel that felt inspiring to me. And the bass was just kind of more intuitive. And I guess I realized that like I used to appreciate bass solos and like technical bass stuff a lot more than not that I don't appreciate it now, but I just don't listen with that being like what I want to hear most of the time. Like from a listening standpoint, I don't like go to records where that's the focal point that often. So I guess my playing on the album was definitely more of an ensemble mentality. Like I just wanted to play whatever I could to support the song and the groove and make it kind of like feel good rather than showcase what I can do on the instrument.
But at the same time, like it does showcase what you can do. I mean, not shred, but like it feels so good, and that's part of why I love you as a musician.
Thanks.
You know, like your deep sense of groove, and you're able to make any ensemble feel that much more grounded and pocketed out.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I gravitate more to that being like that's like kind of more my approach with the instrument. Yeah, just like trying to make stuff feel good and really like lock into whatever pocket is happening or lean into being out of time or whatever's happening, more than trying to be like a soloistic voice or which I don't know, just an approach thing, I guess, or a headspace thing.
Yeah. I think Bob and I both had some not questions. I'd love to hear you talk about the process of creating Windchaser. It's definitely a I don't want to say standout, but it
stands out to me.
Like it's an amazing track. and it's
Thanks.
a journey, you know, and it seems more like it's through composed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you talk about that? Like, there's a different strings and melodies. We'll listen to a bit of it, and then maybe we can talk about it, and then
sure.
Yeah. So let's listen a bit. Let's do that, and then we can hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the finding an excerpt for that song was very difficult because
it goes to a few different places. Yeah,
like I'd like to ask you about it's a journey all the way through, and it seems like trying to describe a form or any of that, or just finding a clean in and out is not easy. And please, listeners, go check this one out all the way through. It's a beautiful track, about 8 minutes long. But can you talk a little bit about writing this one and your thoughts behind it?
Yeah, so I
you're
I'm
muted.
muted. I'm muted. Oh, interesting. Whoops, sorry about that, folks.
All good.
So I started this one. I had sampled a drum beat from like a Rebirth brass band, like masterclass or something on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I just came, like, I had this drone that I was like just harmonizing differently and just kind of messing with different ways I could harmonize this drone, and came up with a pretty long form progression that I liked.
Yeah.
So it started there with just like one groove and this long progression.
What was the drone?
I think it's B flat.
Right on.
Yeah, B flat. I think, and maybe F too, actually. I might have dropped the F.
I transcribed
eventually,
a little bit of that.
So cool.
It does make sense that it would be B flat or F.
Yeah.
The only chord I see that might be spotty is a F major. When you use the Delta Bob, do you mean major 7 or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And I think I ended up dropping it at some point, like when it starts getting into like some of this like D sus. I don't know. So I was just exploring this progression, and then I'd written this melody that I really liked, and then I had a lot of the songs I wrote really quick. Like I was trying to just write them in like 2 hours and not overthink about it.
Yeah.
And this one I just kept on loop for too long, and I was like, this is boring. I gotta it's gotta be a big change in this one because I'm sick of it. And then I kind of pieced together a form on the little demo project, and I just dropped the drums out at a certain point, and I was like, oh, that's so refreshing. Thank goodness. But I still had the chords moving in time, and it was just kind of like experimenting with the audio in the project to get that part of the form where it goes into this more halftime thing. I don't know. So then I was like, it'd be cool to, what if it's like kind of a brisk tempo? What if like we bring in something that's like just halftime, it's kind of like an obvious trick, but it felt good to me to go there, and like a nice change in mood. And like having this, drone that kind of goes through the whole thing to kind of like glue, just some sonic glue. And then I liked the idea of having like it staying in a modal place there, and just like being in, this like B major 7 sharp 11 just like felt like a nice place to sit. And I wanted to make a space for the people in the band to, like, everybody in that group can be so textural in such a like really beautiful way that I wanted to make a space to kind of explore everybody going into that zone and interacting in that space together.
Right.
And it just felt like it would be a nice moment to do that.
And that's where the end, like that long arc down into the end comes from, because that's so beautiful.
We recorded it live, like up until we did it all the way through up until like the quasi hip hop instrumental groove comes in. That was like that was an edit, but we did everything as just like a full take. The like dropout and the halftime, and then Hamir eventually faded out. I think we ended up fading him out sooner in the mixing process, but it was just a live take, and I overdubbed some piano into the like more ambient textural section.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. I have one more specific question. But you have another wizard that we've only briefly mentioned, Steve Blum.
Yes.
On the record, and I'm curious, was he on his own instrument, or did he play something that was that tiny?
He was on Prophet. I think he has a Prophet 12 and like some modular stuff, and he was.
So he was playing his rig, and he's incredible. Totally. At creating soundscapes, textures, and also he's a extremely sharp and advanced harmonic thinker.
Definitely. So I knew that I knew that he was going to fill out the texture of like every song, but I really wanted him to have this space to really do that. And same with Jeff, because he can go there and like make his guitar sound like a synthesizer and play drones and I just so that was kind of the impetus, was to just like have this song go somewhere else and graduate from the driving feel that it starts in. And the flute was
Marcus
an overdub.
Stephen.
Yeah, Marcus. That whole intro melody, the way I wrote it was just a chord progression, and I was like, maybe just blow over this, and he just improvised some like a melody that sounds very composed. And I was like, well, shit, that's really good. Yeah, so that's all him over that first chord progression.
What?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Oh, the longer melody.
The longer melody, like, that's just him improvising.
And then, so the second one that comes in, that's
with the
that's
synth.
like unison.
Yeah, unison, faster.
Yeah, that
was
what I wrote, like in the demo or whatever. Yeah.
Oh wow,
That's
I was
pretty cool.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I initially just wanted that to be a space with like chords and a groove and like some. I think I told him, I was like, just kind of like sparsely solo over this. And he just played the most beautiful melody. I was like, okay, I wish I would have written that. But thankfully I don't have to, because you played it.
That's definitely happened to me before.
Yeah, it's just one of those moments where I was just so thankful.
Yeah, both the conversation that has come up a few times in our prior conversations is, being a all caps composer versus like letting a player play,
Right.
And it seems like there's a really beautiful balance where you've achieved a vision and an aesthetic that you had in mind. This music is true to you. It's music that you've composed, but everyone's voice is still very present for what they can bring, and that's a really cool thing. It's not easy to do, and I think you have done a stellar job with this record. It's really cool.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. So, and I also like that you've got like a couple of remixes as part of the release.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet,
Yeah.
And you have a very unified aesthetic artistically. You did all the design, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Great job, by the way.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
It was fun to explore that side of creativity. I normally don't venture into anything visual, and you
did a great job.
Thanks.
So I think we're gonna wind it down just a little bit. I mean, the whole record is beautiful, highly recommended. Familiar Future out on Rope-A-Dope, under the moniker Dougie Stu.
I'm curious how you got connected to that label, actually.
Oh, yeah. A friend put me in touch with this guy, Lewis, who's the head of Rope-A-Dope, and I sent him an email, and at the time, they were releasing a ton of stuff. Like, I think they have since kind of like reimagined how they would like to operate as a label, but like up to 2020, I think they put out like 20 plus releases in a year. It was like
their Bandcamp is insane.
There's hundreds. They were just putting out so much music, and I mean, I think it was just kind of like the word of a friend. He was like, "Sure, yeah, oh, like sounds good." I don't even know if he listened to the record, to be honest.
It's funny because I've seen in more than a few places it kind of like your record mentioned as like the coolest record on this label in some words, like I'm not saying it exactly how it like, but it's like a lot of people would be like this, like how can you ignore this like the Dougie Stu Familiar Future record on this label? People talking about the label in general,
Yeah, I mean they've been around for so long, and I remember listening to like the Philadelphia Experiment and Yuri Kane and stuff. So it was kind of like another like it felt like a dream come true in a lot of ways to work with them. Just to be like, oh wow, like this is going to be part of their really, and it just kind of worked out. I think it was just good timing. I've since referred friends to the label, and they've been like, oh, well, we're like totally reshaping how we do this, and we're trying to do like a super limited amount of releases and do them all on vinyl. And that wasn't, I pushed for it super hard for them to do vinyl, and they weren't having it when it came out. So I was like, okay, all right, damn. And then,
but I mean, you teamed up with Heavenly Recordings.
They came out of the wings, and they were like, we really want to release this. And I was like, if you can talk,
so good, man.
If you can talk the label into it, I would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's do a quick round of plugs.
Sure.
And then I want to take y'all out on the closing track of this record. I was going to do Joyride.
Sure.
But I love, hang on a sec. Let me bring it up here. I think just to close out a little bit.
Questions. We need more time.
Free their ghosts.
Yeah,
is what I'm talking. Just a little bit of that, just to take y'all out. But all right, so couple shows.
Yeah, got a couple shows.
So we'll have this out in time. So yeah, you can catch Dougie Stu at the Rickshaw Stop in SF on 9/23. That's September 23rd, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and then you have. This is all COVID permitting. It looks like
exactly.
November 4th, you'll be at the Greek Theater in LA with Regime, which looks like a very cool bill overall. Seems like a rad thing.
It's gonna be wild.
And yeah, where can the people find you on the World Wide Web?
I have a website that it's dougiestu.com. There I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all your things are on there?
Yeah, I think so. Gosh, I haven't even announced that. It's like very new. So hopefully
you heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
That's right. Hopefully it's all operational.
Yeah. So yeah, for our media, if you want to check us out, we're on Instagram at FT4HB, FT4HB, and then on Twitter we're at @tones_4. I've said it now, so I'm not going to change it. So that's the way it is. And we have a Patreon page that we have launched to support the artists that we talk to. So if you think an episode is worth $1 or $2 or $5, we would love to be able to support the folks that we are talking to. And you can find us at Patreon. Just search for Fantastic Tones for Human Bones on there. That's I think what we have. Anything else, Bob, on your end?
No, I mean, I guess thank you for your time. Thanks for being flexible with me at the beginning there.
Yeah, no, thank you guys, and thanks for being flexible with the time as well.
Yeah. Amazing to be able to talk to you in depth like this as a fan and as a friend. We really appreciate having you on. I have nothing but immense amounts of respect for you, so thank you for your time.
Right back at both of you guys. Thank you.
Right on. And I'm going to play just a little bit of Free Their Ghosts.
Great.
And thank you all for listening.
Thanks.
We'll see you on the next episode.